Okay guys, so welcome back again. So in this video, let's see that how do we make this ugly application to look like this. So that's what we are going to do in this video. That is, we would be converting this ugly looking application into this beautiful looking application using CSS. So let's see how do we do it. So firstly, what we need to do inside our index.html file, we need to create a link for style.css, and that file will be created inside this public directory. So let's create that file here. So let me right click here and new file, and the file name would be style.css like this. And now inside our index.html, what we would like to do, we would like to create a link to that CSS, and the name would be style.css like this. So let's save this and let's open our style.css, and here to check whether it's working or not. So let's give for now our body a background color of say red like this, and let's save it. Let's go back and let's go back to our application and let's refresh it, and we see that the style.css file is loaded here. So now let's again go back to our application, and this time let me remove this body color from here. And now what we want to do, we want to write some CSS rules here. So firstly, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop my application here, and before continuing on, I would like to open this index.html file with live server. And if you don't have live server installed inside your VS Code, then what you can do, you can go to this VS Code extensions thing here, and here you can simply search for live server like this, and then you will be getting this live server here, and it's a plugin here or an extension inside VS Code that would help us to open our index.html file inside the browser, and it will hot reload the page as soon as it sees inside the index.html file. So I suggest that you install this plugin or this extension called live server. And now let me close it, and now what we can do, we can simply, let me minimize this terminal window here because we do not need it anymore. And now what you can do, either you can click on go live here, or you can simply right click on your index.html file and you can simply click this thing here, that is open with live server, and it will open your application with live server. So this application is not running on port 4000 as it was before, but it is running on port 5500, and it is provided by live server extension. So we would be using this live server to see real-time changes inside our style.css files. So now let's open this application and our VS Code side by side. So we see that we have the application on the right side and the VS Code on the left side. So let me also minimize this pane here, and now let's go to our style.css file here. And the first thing we would like to do is to change the font of this application. So currently, as we see that in the completed application, we are using a font called Open Sans. So what you can do, you can go to google.com, and here you can simply search for Google Fonts, and then you will be getting this link here, that is Google Fonts, and then we can go inside this thing here. And now let's search for Open Sans. So Open Sans or whatever font you like. So I'm choosing this Open Sans here. And now here we would like to choose two styles of this font, that is the regular 400 and bold 700. So let me click on select style here, and for this bold 700 also. And now let's click on this embed thing here, and now we need to import it inside our CSS file. So let's click on import here, and now let's copy this URL from here, and now let's paste it inside our style.css file here. And then we would be using this font family here. So let me copy it from here and let me paste it inside the body tag here. And let's save this. And we can also close this Open Sans from here. And we see that our application font has been changed from the ugly looking font to this Open Sans font. And now before continuing on, I would like to reset all the styles, that is all the CSS margins and paddings, and we would be changing the box sizing also. So let's do a generic style here that would apply to all elements. So the margin would be 0, the padding would be 0, and the box sizing would be border box. So box sizing would be border box. And now the scroll behavior should be smooth. So scroll behavior should be smooth like this. And now let's style the body tag here. So let's save this style.css, and we see that all the margins and all the paddings have been removed from all the elements, as we see on the right side here. So let me increase the font size a little bit here. So now we want to display this body as flex. So display as flex, the flex direction would be column, and justify content would be center, and align items would be center like this. So now let's save this, and it would make all the elements to appear in the center of the page. So let's save this, and we see that it is done here. And instead of using this flexbox, if you want to use flexbox throughout, then you can use this thing here. Otherwise, what you can do, simpler thing here, is to display it as grid. So display it as grid, and then you can simply do place items to be center like this. And these 2 lines and these 4 lines do the same thing. So let's save this, and nothing has been changed here. So it depends on you that which thing you want to use, but I would recommend that you go for flexbox, because you would be doing everything using flexbox. And now what more we want to do here, we want to change the background color of this body here. So let's change the background color. So background color to be #EB. And let's save this, and our body background color is changed, and it looks something like this. That is in the completed application. And now let's style the title here, that is this title here, and we would be given a margin of top and bottom of 20 pixels. So title, and since this title has a class of title, as we can see here, that this title has a class of title, or we do not have provided here title class here. So let's provide the class here, that is class title. So class equal to title like this. Let's save the index.html, and let's go to style.css, and here we can simply say margin 20 pixels top and bottom and 0 pixels left and right. So let's save this, and we have some margin here for this h1 element. And now let's style the main container, that is this complete container. So dot main, and here we would be giving it a border of 8 pixels solid #DTDD. So border of 8 pixels solid border, and the color would be #DDDDDD. Let's save this, and we see that we get this container here that contains each and everything. And we need to give it a border radius of 24 pixels to make the corners look rounded. So border radius to be 24 pixels, and it depends on you that what values you use here. I am using these values, you might use different values here. And now for the main container, we want the overflow to be hidden. So overflow hidden like this. So let's save this, and we see that we have this thing here. And now let's style this name thing here, that is this name element here, or this name div here that contains these 2 things here, that is the span tag and the input tag. So we are styling that thing here. So let's style the name element or the name div. So name, and here we want to display it as flex. So display flex. The font size would be 32. So font size 32 pixels, not PS but pixels. Font weight to be 700, so that it is bolder. And then what we want to have, we want to have a padding of 8 pixels on top and bottom and 16 pixels left and right. So padding 8 pixels top and bottom, 16 pixels left and right. And then we want to give it a color, that is the text color, and the color would be 707070. So #707070. And we want to also give it a background color of #EBEBEB. So background color would be #EBEBEB like this. So let's save this, and we see that we get this thing here. So now let me zoom it at 100%, that this thing here at 100%, and we are getting this thing here. And now what we want to style, we want to style this span tag here, that is this span tag which contains the font awesome icon here. So let's style that. So dot name, and we want to style the span tag inside that name class element, and it should only contain one property, and that is the color. So let's change the color to #PBB like this. So let's save this, and now let's style the name input, that is this input field I am talking about, which contains the name of the client. So for this we have a class called name input applied to this input field here. As we can see in the index.html file, that this input has a class of name input. So we are styling that thing here. And now it should have a font size of 24 pixels. So font size 24 pixels. The font weight would be 700, and the color would be hash 707070. And since this name div has a property of display flex and we want this name input to grow as much as it can, so we would be providing here a property that is flex grow would be 1. Then we do not want to have any border to this input field, so we can say none, border to be none. The margin should be 0 pixels top and bottom and 12 pixels left and right. So margin 0 pixels top and bottom, 12 pixels left and right. Then we want to have an outline of none. That is, we do not want to see any input outline here that we see here. That is this outline I'm talking about that we see in the blue here. So we want the outline to be none. So let's save this, and the outline is gone here. And now the background color of this input field is currently white. So let's change it to the same color as the span tag here, or the background color of the name div here, that is hash EB. So let me copy it and let's give it a background color of hash EB. So let's save this, and we have this input field here. So now let's style the message container, which contains all the messages, that is these messages here. So let's style it. So again, the class is message container and we want to display it as flex. So display, not inline but flex, and then the flex direction would be column. Background color would be hash F6, and we want the width of this container, that is message container, to be 400 pixels. So the width would be 400 pixels and the height of this container would be 600 pixels. 600 pixels like this. And we want the overflow Y to be scroll and overflow X to be hidden. So overflow Y to be scroll and overflow X to be hidden like this. Now let's save this and let's see that what do we have here, and we see that we are getting this thing here. So let me zoom it at 100% here on the window here. So we see that we are reaching this application here, that is this completed layout here. So now let's style this individual messages here. So firstly, I want to target each and every message here, that is this message left and this message right, because in our index.html file we see that currently we have these two dummy messages, that is of class, that is an li with a class of message left and an li of message right. And then we have the third li whose class is message feedback. So currently we are going to style these two messages here, that is the message left and the message right. So let's style them together here firstly. So dot message left dot message right. So let's change this left to right like this. And now inside here, firstly we want to change the list style. So list style would be none. The padding would be 8 pixels to top and bottom and 12 pixels left and right. So padding would be 8 pixels top and bottom and 12 pixels left and right. The margin would be 12 pixels on each of the sides. The max width of this element, that is this li element, should be 250 pixels. So let's give it a max width of 250 pixels, not 25 but 250 pixels. The font size should be 18 pixels. So font size should be 18 pixels. And then we want to have another property, that is word wrap. So word wrap, and it should be brick word like this. So now let's save this and let's see what do we have here. So we see that we are getting this thing here. And now let's style the individual messages here, that is the message left and the message right. So currently we are styling this top message because it contains a class of message left. So let's copy this message left from here. So let's paste it here. And now here what we want to have, we want to give it a border radius of 20 pixels on 3 sides and 0 pixels on one side. So border radius would be 20 pixels, 20 pixels, 20 pixels and 0 pixels like this. And we want to give it a property of align self to be flex start. So align self to be flex start like this. And then the background color should be white. So background color should be hash FFF. And then we want to give it a box shadow also. So box shadow would be -2 pixels X, 2 pixels Y, 4 pixels blur, and the color would be hash DC 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 like this. So let's save this and let's see. So we see that we are getting this message left here. So now similarly, let's copy this message left from here and let's paste it again here. And this time let me change this message left to message right. And let's save this. So we have these two messages here, but we need to change something here. Firstly, we need to change the border radius because we want to change this border radius to be rounded and this one to be pointed or to be 90 degrees. So we have top left, top right, bottom right and bottom left. So this should be 0 here and this should be 20 here. So we see that we are getting this thing here, and the background color for this message box here should be hash 2D 2D 2D. So 2D 2D 2D, and the box shadow would be 2 pixels X, not negative but positive 2 pixels. So let's save this and we see that we are getting this thing here, but we need to change the color of the text here. So let's change the color here. So the color would be hash F6 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 like this. So let's save this, and now we want to move this message right container towards the right. So instead of align self to be flex start, it should be flex end, and that's it. So let's save this and we have this message bubble here. So now let's style the span tags of these message containers here. As we see that we have a span tag inside this message left and message right that both contains a span here. So let's do that. So firstly what we want to do, dot message left, we want to target the p tag here inside this message left, and then we want to target the span tag here. That is message left contains a p, and then inside the p we have the span here. As you can see that the message left contains a p and inside that p we have a span here. And similarly we also want to target the message right here. So let's paste it here, and this should be message right because both message left and right contains the span tag inside the p tag. And for this p tag we want to display it as blocks. So display it as block. Font style should be italic. Font size should be 12 pixels. So font size should be 12 pixels. And margin top should be 4 pixels. So that there is a spacing between this text and this span tag here. So let's save this and we see that we are getting this thing here now. Though you can use the EM tags here, but I am using span tags. It depends on your UI, but I am using span here, though you can use EM also. So now let's style this feedback message here. So let's style this feedback here. So dot feedback like this, because this this li tag has a class of feedback here, as we can see here. That is, it contains a p here with a class of feedback here. So we are styling this here. That is this feedback here. And the font style should be italic. So font style should be italic. The font size would be 14 pixels. The padding should be 0 pixels top and 16 pixels on all the other 3 sides. So 0 pixels top, 16 pixels on all the other 3 sides. So let me copy and paste it here like this. And then we want to give it a background color of hash F6 F6 F6. So let's give it a background color, or we do not require the background color here, but we need to change the color of this text here. So let's change the color to be hash 2D 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 like this, and we need to align it to the center of this thing here. That is the center here. So text align to be center like this. So now let's save this and we see that we are getting this thing here. That is the feedback messages here. So now let's style this message form here. But as I can see that I have some bug inside my HTML, and that is this total clients is inside this main div here. So let's remove this total clients from the main div here. So let's go to our index.html file here, and let me just remove this h3 from inside the main div here, and let's paste it outside the main div. So let's save it and we see now it is better. That is total clients is at the bottom here. So let's style this main message form here. So now what do we want to have? Let's target the message form, because our form has a class of message form. That is this message form here. So let's copy the class name from here. Let's go to our style.css and let's style it here. And this should have a display property of flex. So display to be flex, justify content to be space between, and the width should be 400 pixels. So width should be 400 pixels like this. Let's save this, and we see that we have this thing here. So let me zoom in a little bit here. That is this browser here. So this thing. So now let's style the message input field here. That is this input field. So dot message input. Because this input field has a class of message input, as we can see here, that is this message input here. That is this message input. And it should have a property of flex grow to be 1, so that it takes whole of the space here. So flex grow to be 1. So let's save this. And we see that this input field now takes the whole of the space, just leaving the space for the button here. And now what do we want to have? We want to give it a height of 48 pixels. So height of 48 pixels, the font size of 16 pixels, the border of none. That is, we do not want to have any border on this thing. The outline should be again none. So outline should be again none. We want to give it a padding, that is top and bottom of 0 and 12 pixels left and right. And then we want to give it a background color of hash FFF. So background color would be hash FFF like this. So let's save this, and we see that we have this input field here. So now let's style this message button here, that is the send button here. So dot send button, because this button has an ID of send button. If we can see in the HTML here, that is this button has an ID of, or this class of send button. So we are styling this class here, that is send button class. So its again height would be 48 pixels. The font size should be 16 pixels. Border of none. Padding to be 0 pixels top and bottom and 20 pixels left and right. The outline should be again none. So outline should be none. The background color should be hash FFF. So background color should be hash FFF. And the cursor to be pointer like this. So now let's save this, and we see now we have this thing here. And now what do we want to do? We want to target this vertical divider between these two input field and the send button here. If we can see in the completed application, let's scroll down, we see that we have a vertical divider here. And if we look at our application, we do not see that divider here. So let's style that divider here, and that divider is between these two input field and this button here, and it is class of vDivider. So let's copy this vDivider from here and let's style it here. So dot vDivider, and it should have a height of 48 pixels and a width of 2 pixels. And we need to give it a background color. So background color should be hash F6 F6 F6. So let's save this. And now we see that we have a vertical divider here. So now let's style this client's total here, and it's a very simple style. We only need to give it a margin and color. So dot client's total, margin of 20 pixels top and bottom and 0 pixels left and right. And then we want to give it a color of hash 70 70 70. So 70 70 70. So let's save this, and now we have this thing here. So let's see here. So now this basically completes the UI of the application, that is the complete CSS of the application. And probably in the next video, let's see that how do we handle WebSockets inside our application, and that's what we are going to do in the very next video.